Hey, golfers, and welcome back to another episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. I believe it's episode 51. So last episode, we crossed the 50 mark.
Nice.
But now we're past the half century mark. Is that a word? Half century?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
made it one.
I think so.
If it's
I think
not
that's good. It's hyphenated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a word. Joining is Kevin Kraft. We had him on last week to talk about what to expect at the U.S. Senior Open, and now, of course, he's in town this week for some content filming. So look for that if you're an avid follower of the YouTube channel. We got a bunch of stuff coming. But Kevin's here. It's been a quick turnaround for you. I want the audience to be aware that I did check with him on this scheduling here on this.
Yes,
So-
I've pretty much done this to myself.
Yeah, so he flew in early this morning on Monday after the U.S. Senior Open. So we got him in town. We had to talk to him about the experience, about playing there. I know you're not super happy with the result ultimately, but I know it was still, I guess, my perspective, and obviously that everybody at Second Swing, it was just cool to see your name on there and follow you and all that. So it was just, in that regard, it was still cool for us, even though it was cut a little short.
To an extent, the winning is in getting there.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a guy who's playing his Thursday and Friday rounds as his 23rd and 24th rounds of the year, you don't necessarily know what to expect.
Right.
You know, you grind things out. I played a 3-day tournament, New Hampshire Open, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Ahead of that, so just to get myself some more reps, I'd actually thought about withdrawing from that and kind of saving my energy. And then it just sort of dawned on me that I just really need more reps. So I went up and played, fought through a bit of a cold, fought through 2 thunderstorm delays, 2 fog delays. Actually had 2 delays in this event where they called us in. We sat around for hour to 2 hours. They sent us back out, and I hit 1 shot before they called us back in again. Both on one of them on a thunderstorm and one of them on fog.
Wow.
So
It's really the fog one's weird because typically, I guess maybe it lightened up and then it became dense again, or what?
The first hole, it goes to I think it's the highest point on this golf course, is Montcalm Golf Club up in Enfield, New Hampshire. And the problem was that was the only spot that was getting fogged in. Like we could have played. We could have played all the way through, but we would have totally backed up, everything around the first hole.
Right.
So we were going to have a delay one way or the other, whether we kept playing or whether we didn't keep playing. So the fog had cleared enough for us to go, and then
Except for on the first hole.
And then, it did initially on the first hole, and then it quickly resettled back in, and we had kind of had to wait it out. So
Interesting. Well,
do what you got to do. But the reps were decent there. I finished 22nd out of about 132 players, something like that, and I shot a really annoying 3-day 71, 71, 71 with diminishing returns even. So 3 birdies and 3 bogeys the first day, 2 birdies and 2 bogeys the second day, and an extremely annoying 1 birdie and 1 bogey the last day. I mean, I'm sorry. If I'm making 16 pars and it's not at least, just 2 birdies to go along with those, I'm probably going to be annoyed. So, yeah.
Yeah, you probably had a lot of burned edges or something that day.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Iron game was a little bit loose, so I kind of knew what to focus on, heading into the Senior Open.
Yeah.
And so drove from New Hampshire back to Pennsylvania to pick up my wife. So that was like an 8.5 hour drive, especially after delays. And so I didn't get home till like midnight on technically I guess it was Sunday morning, and then we left at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday to go up to Rhode Island. So
Which is how far of a drive?
It ended up being about 7.5. So
Wow.
Yeah.
And then was your first practice round Monday, or did you get some Sunday too?
No, we just took our time.
I was going to
got
say
in, kind of got
be a lot in one day.
Yeah, a little feel for the area, and then John Wilkins and I got out real early on Monday morning to play a practice round, which was cool. Weird. I love playing practice rounds by myself. Just
It was just you and your caddy were by yourself.
Yeah,
Nice.
just go out, relax. At that time of day, there's not a whole lot of guys going, right? Most guys are just showing up and getting checked in
Right.
and everything. So I wanted to get out there and just have a chance to just kind of see the golf course. I'm not a guy that loves to stand there and hit like a bunch of chip shots to this spot and a bunch of chip shots to that spot. It's like, dude, you never know where you're going to be.
Which
right?
later in the week, did you end up playing with guys like that?
So yes, the on Wednesday played in the afternoon, and it was much more like that. We played behind VJ Singh, and
Oh goodness,
his group was.
I've heard about
His group,
Yeah,
his group was pretty slow. So I played with Dave Moreland, who I went to college with, which was
Oh.
cool. I hadn't played with him for quite a while, and Woody Austin, and both those guys were just playing 9. So it was great when it was the 3 of us, and then after they left, I wanted to go and continue on play the back 9 in the afternoon winds, which was really cool because we had the marine layer kind of kicked in, so we got some serious fog and some serious wind. It was really cool. I mean, the whole place kind of has that Scottish feel about it anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty much not a tree on the whole golf course, and so having that fog roll in and
Right.
the wind kicking up and kind of cooling off a little bit just kind of gave it that across the pond feel. Which was
interesting.
really awesome.
Yeah, because it certainly, I saw some like clips and footage of it. It really seemed like it was, the wind was a factor.
Yep.
And it was linksy in a way, right?
Oh, not in a way. It was very much linksy. Yeah. The cool part about the last 2 U.S. Senior Opens I've played in have been very traditional U.S. style, tight fairways, super deep rough, and at Newport it was very different. The fairways were much wider. The defense on this golf course was always going to be intended to be the wind, and the USGA I think did a fantastic job with this, letting the natural tendencies of the golf course be what they are. Right? They didn't need to narrow up the fairways. They didn't need to do any of the other stuff. They just needed to let the golf course be. And you look at the numbers. Numbers were better than they have been. The last 2 that I've played. I shot 71, 72 and didn't make the cut. It's 3 over, and 2 over was the number. So it held up nicely on its own. It's not like everybody beat up the golf course.
Right.
In the end, Richard Bland certainly did a great job. He finished it off
Right.
at 13 under along with Mr. Fujita. So
yeah. That's I was kind of curious about because obviously we could talk about your round a little bit, but there's like in terms of the styles of play you mentioned, there was in 21 and 22 there was kind of the traditional quote unquote U.S. style, and then this is more linksy. Do you have a preference for one or the other? Did you feel more comfortable with this versus that, or?
So I definitely felt a little more comfortable with this, knowing that there was a little more room to play with off the tee. It's not as stressful to me, given my history with driver yips and, all the stuff that plays out in this thing. Goodness gracious. I don't wish this on anybody, but knowing that there's a little more room out there definitely makes things a little bit easier for me. So I actually had a really pretty good week with the driver overall.
Yeah.
I drove it phenomenally first day. Got a little bit tight second day. Hit a couple tee shots that weren't quite what I wanted, but only really one bad tee shot, the whole week. So
Interesting.
pretty happy with that.
Well, so in terms of the golf itself, you mentioned that you drove the ball well. I guess we don't need to dive too far into the details here, but in terms of playing out there, being part of the tournament and stuff, I know it's your 3rd time, so it's not like it's something brand new, but is it certainly different than playing your even like Pennsylvania State Open, or even if there's a certain level of like, could you kind of describe what that extra, is it a competitiveness? Is it a pressure? What would you describe it as?
I'd call it anxiety.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I have some issues with anxiety, and it's just a matter of staying focused and understanding that, it's not unnatural. I would prefer it to just be, first hole jitters would be a lot nicer rather than having, continued anxiety as I'm playing throughout. But it's trusting the golf swing and just not letting it overtake everything. But there's definitely, it's the whole production is so different. Not as a knock at all on Pennsylvania Golf Association. They do a phenomenal job with their events. They're great. USGA look, USGA and I butt heads quite a bit on stuff lately, decisions that are being made, but they know how to run a golf tournament, and it is top-notch, first class every step of the way.
Yeah.
So, you just feel like you're really part of something.
Yeah.
And it's very cool.
They roll out the red
Plus
carpet.
then you've got, you've got the best older players on the planet all playing. So,
right.
That makes it a little different too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you see the Ernie Els and the Padre Harringtons and
Bernard Longers,
66
years old, recovering from a ruptured Achilles in 3 months.
Yeah.
Dude is a legend.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. It was great. So I was hitting putts before the final round, my final round, the second round, and I don't know. I knocked in something from like 15 feet, and Bernard's walking by. He goes, bingo! I was like, yeah, cool. All right, nice. It's just kind of
awesome.
random,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, sweet.
He's just one of the boys, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
I guess in terms of kind of on that note, is there any other encounters you had with bigger names, I guess, out there? Or,
Well, I actually had lunch with Richard Bland on Wednesday, which was cool. I mean, he ends up winning the golf tournament.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was after lunch, I went out and grabbed my caddy, and I said, I just had lunch with Richard Bland. He's like, oh, that's cool. All right. Richard Bland's story has been pretty inspirational.
Yeah.
He didn't win on the DP World Tour for the longest time, and then as he got older, he's just gotten better. He's like a fine cheese, and so obviously him going to live is what it is, but he's continued to play very, very well.
Yeah,
he's won the last 2 senior majors, so he's in a good vein of form, and I would just happen to be right there with him in the lunch line, and went to get some blackened salmon. When I took the the lid off, I was like, well, that's really the least blackened salmon I think I've ever seen for blackened salmon. And I expressed this out loud, and I didn't even know he was beside me. And he's like, yeah, but it's cooked, so we'll eat the salmon. Okay, fine. So, I got a little something else, and he'd gone off to sit down, and I was like, well, I'm not a very social person most of the time. I'm pretty much a keep to myself type, but he's sitting up there by himself, and I was like, well, I could either go sit here, or I could just go and like sit down and have lunch with Richard Bland. So what the heck? I'm just going to do that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm like, hey, you mind if I join you? He's like, no, absolutely. So like super nice, really good. We just talked a little bit of shop and then went our own ways. But so
cool.
that was really cool. Ran into Cam Percy.
Sure.
Cam and I go back to my Corn Ferry / Nationwide days. Hadn't seen him for a long time. He's like, I ran into him in the lunchroom as well. He's like, I was wondering if I was going to get to see you this week, and now you're like the first person I ran into. So it was really nice to see him.
Nice.
He's such a great guy. Always wish him well. Ran into Scott Perrell and his caddy Keith Nolan. Keith's a Man United fan, so he and I banter back and forth about the English Premier League, and it's always good to see Scotty. He's just such a great guy. So I ran into some guys that I really wanted to see. So that was cool. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's kind of another sort of perk of playing in this event,
definitely.
I imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
That has to be kind of cool to come back and especially having the career you've had and kind of going into the Corn Ferry, and a lot of these guys were kind of with you during that time. So yeah, I mean, I think I kind of wanted to get a little bit into the golf, and like, I guess if there was one thing that didn't go as well as you wanted to throughout the whole week, is there, I guess they're the 36 holes.
overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way I played. I drove the ball really well with, possibly 3 exceptions. I did not hit a good tee shot off the 9th hole. I had thought about hitting a 3-wood instead of driver, and then I was like, and I just didn't put a positive swing on it. And that's the thing that bothers me the most is when I don't put a positive swing on something. If I've not committed to it the way I need to commit to it, then I get unhappy with me, right? Because the club isn't swinging itself, so I'm the only one that I can look at for that one. I really only missed a few fairways for the week, so I can't fault the way I drove the ball. First day iron play was not quite as good as I wanted it to be. Back 9. Once we turned back into the wind, for some reason I was having this tendency to leave the face open. I checked my line, double checked my alignment. Everything seemed to be okay. I just wasn't getting the release down, and it was causing me some definite issues from where I was ending up, making me work way too hard. Really, I think the 3 bad iron shots really only cost me 1 shot, but so we actually went to work after the round on Thursday, spent some time on the driving range trying to figure that out, and I changed my setup a little bit, and it seemed to work really well. I struck the ball very, very well the second day, but the wind was different in that we had much more crosswind on the second day than we had first day, and that's tough when you're turn the ball right to left and you're in a right to left wind. It's really hard to figure out where this ball needs to start, in order for it to end up in a good spot. And one of the bogeys I made on Friday, pins all the way over on the right hand side of the 12th hole, and I threw a pitching wedge 15 yards outside the green, right, and I had 70 feet coming back from the left edge of the green, goodness. Right. So I 3-putted.
So what was
that
the speed of the wind? Like, was it the same both days? And what was it?
It really was.
On the clips I saw, the flag was kind of whipping. So
yeah, the wind. It wasn't as bad as it was in the practice round on Wednesday for sure. I think it was probably in that 7, 8, 9 range, maybe with an occasional gust a little bit more. So it wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't. Oh, I can't play in this.
Right. Well, enough that you got to think about it.
But yeah, you definitely
you
have to work your way around, and you have to. You're going to get some effect. I was pleased that I actually had a really good week with the putter. I did have 2 3-putts, but I really rolled the ball very, very well. Made some really good saves when I needed to. Would have liked to have made 1 or 2 more birdie putts. Couple burnt edges, couple lip outs. I may hit 1 bad putt for the week. It was a 4-footer on the 13th hole on Friday. We had just been told to kind of pick it up a little bit.
Oh, really?
Well, so we were right behind Bernard Longer.
Yeah.
Right. And the official came over and he goes, "Look, man, I don't want to give you guys a hard time, but you're starting to drift behind Bernard Longer." Which I thought was hilarious. So we started to step on it, and we were caught up by the time we were in 14 fairway. I may have rushed my putt just a little bit.
Yeah.
I might have taken it too much for granted because I've been putting really, really well, and I kind of came up out of it and pulled it just a little and missed. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't look at any part of my game and think, ugh, for the week, right?
Right.
And I think I've got a lot of positives to build from.
Which is kind of, that's at least a nice thing to come away with, right? Where it seems like you got the right head on your shoulders about this, where you're not dwelling. I mean, missing the cut by a shot stinks, but
yes, it does.
But you're able to kind of see the positives in it, and because you got a lot more golf to play, you got things to look forward to here and stuff. So
another thing that we haven't gone super deep into all my inner insanity, but for the last 3 years hitting iron shots, I haven't been able to look at the golf ball. Like I literally don't look at the golf ball when I hit iron shots.
Okay, I feel like that's actually new to me.
Yeah, so I was standing. This was at out in Nebraska at Senior Open there.
Oh yeah,
and since about 2020, I used to look down at the golf ball and it was just there. It was just like it was an abstract object. It was just there, and I didn't really notice it.
Okay.
So I just hit my shots. Right, no big deal. All of a sudden, one day, apparently, I noticed the golf ball, and my eyes just started darting all over the place. Like, can't focus on a spot at all. And that really kicked in during the Pennsylvania Open that was at Oakmont that year, and I played very poorly there. And I had no idea what was going on. My eyes were just all over the place. So this is on top of having the driver yips.
Yeah.
Right. And technically, I guess, kind of the long putt yips too. We'll get to that one in a minute.
Okay.
I'm just going to lay it all out. I mean, might as well just let's get it all out there. So I'm standing on the range, and I've got like Colin Montgomery here, and I got Ernie Els back here at Country Club of Omaha, and I'm fatting shots, and I'm thinning shots, and I'm looking around for Lee Jansen. I'm like, am I going to hit some chili peppers up Lee Jansen's? And go just full on tin cup. And so I'm freaking out, right?
Right.
I mean, I've already got massive
So
anxiety
this at the
going
time
out
is
there.
also your first
Yeah.
appearance in the US
This
Senior Open.
first one, and I'm a full blown just bottle of freak out.
Yeah.
And so I stood back for a second, and I went, all right, look, we've dealt with the driver yips. We had an analytical approach to how to figure out how to work our way out of it, not out of it, but around it.
Yeah.
So how am I going to figure out this issue? And I got to thinking, I had what's the worst shot you can hit in golf? Well, laying the sod over it sucks, right? That's bad, right? You're never fat to win is not a thing in golf. Thin to win, however, it is a thing in golf, right?
Okay, I think I know where this is going.
So I'm like, okay, so we need to, if we're going to do anything, we need to catch it thin. And I had a guy that I used to teach back in 2013 when I was in Georgia, running a practice facility down there. And he literally had to look like 6 inches ahead of the ball in order to be able to hit it. And I'm like, all right, let's see what happens here. Because if I can't look at the golf ball because my eyes just dart all over the place, let's see if I can look at something else. So I started looking at about an inch in front of the ball. And I struck it really, really well that week.
Yeah.
Like it kind of did what it needed to do. My misses would tend to be thin, and I can get away with that. And every now and then I'd, catch one heavy, especially at that point because I was just trying to feel my way around through that whole thing. So, anyway, that's continued on through 22 and 23. And then we get to this last week. And so I had the bag shake up, right? Because I needed a couple different clubs to be able to manage things. And the interesting part was the Strixon ZX2 iron. I hadn't played it since the Senior Open at Saucon Valley. Actually, I had to get it back from a buddy of mine who I'd let use it. And so I was working with it, and I was like, well, if I'm going to put this thing in the bag, I need it for more than just off the tee. There's really only like one, two, maybe 3 tee shots, depending on where the par 3s are playing, that I would use it. But there's a couple other places where I potentially would need to. So I threw this ball down on the ground, and I'm going to hit this 2-iron off the deck. And I'm like, well, off the tee, I can look at the golf ball. Off the deck, I've not been able to do that. So anyway, I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what to do with this thing. And I just looked at the golf ball.
Yeah.
And killed it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What's going on here, right? Kind of does not compute. So I got done hitting that, and let's see what happens. I grabbed 5-iron, started looking at the golf ball. Okay. 7-iron. Okay. Wedges. Okay. And I looked at the golf ball. This was Wednesday. I looked at the golf ball Thursday and Friday. For the first time in 3 years, I've been able to look down at the golf ball and stay focused on the golf ball while I'm hitting shots.
You said insane. Now you did say insane.
Yeah, I mean
that is insane.
It is insane. It's absolutely nuts, and I don't know.
Because I didn't know you were looking at the ball.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
No, you pretty much would never know. I mean,
yeah, you can't tell just by looking at it.
No,
and watching
no,
it.
it's not like I got
Watching
like
it.
laser beams that show where my eyes are pointed.
So
right?
when we've been filming videos and stuff, you're looking in front of the ball.
Yep. Every time, except off the tee.
Wow.
Every iron shot that we've hit, I've looked in front of the golf ball.
Should I try this?
I don't know. Do you need to?
I
don't
know.
really recommend it. I mean, it's a workaround. I don't want anybody to have these workarounds. That's no fun. It's like standing there and being freaked out. Like, how am I going to hit a golf shot when
Right.
you're playing in your first U.S. Senior Open? Not a feeling that I would want anybody to have to deal with. I didn't want to have to deal with it, but made it work. Right. But I just keep getting these things that I have to work my way around. So I referenced, long putt yips. Who gets long putt yips? Right?
Kevin Kraft.
I do.
does.
Right? This is so stupid because the yips are supposed to be the touch shots, right?
Yeah.
No, I get them with the driver, the thing that I'm swinging at the hardest, and then longer putts. But I figured that one out too. I putt cross-handed long putts and I putt conventional short putts. I am a complete antithesis of normal.
That's true. Because you're
I mean,
right.
just look at me. I mean, there you go. I mean, right? I mean, come on now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, it works for you.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and I'm happy to do it because I love this. I love playing. I love competing. I love putting myself out there. I love the competition. Love the golf courses. My goodness. I mean, I couldn't have loved being at Newport Country Club more if I'd had to. Like, it just everything about the place is just spectacular. So good. So
It looked awesome. I
yeah,
mean,
it was great.
It
was
looked like my
great.
kind of course too.
It was great.
I enjoy those.
Yeah. If you ever get the invite, you gotta go.
Okay.
You gotta go. It's so good.
Oh, sorry.
And then there's lobster rolls.
That's true. There's lobster rolls up there. How many of those do you have?
I only had 2. I ate a lot of clam chowder though.
Oh, I suppose.
Found a really, really good clam chowder.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Very picky about my clam chowder. My whole family is originally from Massachusetts, so I grew up on clam chowder.
Got ya.
So I'm picky.
So, U.S. Senior Open's done. Not exactly what you wanted. I know you'll continue to qualify for those in the future.
Let's hope so.
What else is coming on the schedule for Kevin the rest of the year?
So I got to do some work. I've got July pretty much to go back to work and try and get some practice in there too. Pennsylvania Open is in August, and then September I think September's Colorado, and maybe New Mexico Open.
Okay.
And then October, Texas Senior Open. So,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll go into Q School,
Nice.
Champions Q School.
Where's that at?
Nothing confirmed, but they've done it the last couple years. They've had 3. It's only a 2 segment thing for the seniors.
Oh, yeah.
So they had 1 in California, 1 in Mississippi, and 1 in Florida, and then
Okay.
finals. I think they're just keeping it out at TPC Scottsdale's Champions course.
Oh, okay.
So
That's right. I do remember it being out there.
yeah,
So.
it seems like a reasonable spot.
Yeah. Well, if it's in Scottsdale and, when you're there, maybe we'll have to go down there and
Well, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, it's again, it was really fun to follow. I remember I had the star. Kevin was starred on my U.S. Senior Open leaderboard, so I was getting the notifications and all that stuff. So it was good. It was a lot of fun. I know you'll be back. Feel pretty good about that.
I hope so. I feel like my game's probably better right now than it's been over the last few years, and I'm hitting it every bit as far, if not farther. This driver head shaft combination and the dark speed with this auto flex has just been incredible.
Because I mean, as far as I know, the last 2 years, 3 years, you've changed to a new driver each year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe this is the year you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
By this year, I mean like 2025.
Yeah, yeah. Being on Cobra staff, you try the new driver every year. They typically don't really regress, right?
That's a good point.
Most drivers don't go.
They really haven't.
This one's good. This one's good. Oh, this one's no good. I had maybe some challenges with the Aerojet last year from a feel perspective. It just felt a little bit harsh.
Okay.
A little harder coming off the face, and some people like that, right? So for me, I like a little more of a, I don't know, I guess I feel like the ball's getting smashed, and the dark speed is just, man, kudos to Cobra. They've put out a phenomenal driver this year.
Yeah. Well, clearly it's working for you. You said you drove it phenomenally.
Yeah. Well, and you get a great head, you got to get a great shaft for it. And I messed around with the Autoflex last year, and didn't end up going to it. I'm not going away from it now.
Right.
I mean, you just got to get the build right, and then go forth.
Well, this is coming from a guy who has self-proclaimed driver yips.
Yeah.
And so he's still hitting the ball supremely well off the tee. So
I hit 22 out of 28 fairways last week. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah.
11 each day.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, Mr. Kevin Kraft, thank you for joining the episode.
Certainly.
It was a pleasure to follow. I know, again, not the result you wanted, but still fun to watch.
Goes.
And, I know you got a lot more success coming the rest of this year and in the future.
Well, let's hope so. As long as I can keep all the insanity from,
I can get a
bubbling
kick
up
I get
too
a kick
much
out of it. So
yeah, I'm definitely somebody you can get a kick out of.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a good point. I've learned that over the years. So, all right, we'll wrap it there.
Cool.
We've got some more videos to film today too. So
nice.
I'll remind one more time the viewers and listeners to follow the Second Swing YouTube channel for the videos that we're filming this week with Kevin. They'll be probably out in the next couple weeks or so. So stay tuned for that. But Kevin, thank you again. Let's get some lunch now, right?
Anytime. Sure. Sounds good.